Alexandria to the Voice of Hope and our Out of the Shadows podcast. Want to thank you for joining us again today. I'm hoping that today will also prove to be another session, conversation that will bring some answers to maybe some questions you have, or maybe bring you some answers to questions that you didn't know you had. So again, thanks for being with us today. This is our third episode, and we're excited because it's all brand new, but we're excited to get this going. So today I have with me, starting with my left, with Mary and Lorraine. And you guys might remember from last time we did an episode together. And so thanks for being here again today. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And then we have Rosie Diaz, also a member from our very first one that we did together. She interviewed me regarding the goals of this podcast and what we hope to cover. So again, thanks for being here today. She's on the hot seat. She's our interviewee. But I'm thankful to both of you for being here with us today. So
of course,
we'll get right into this. So if you remember, I'll just briefly say that the reason for the Out of the Shadows broadcast is really about having conversations that are sometimes hard to have with family members or with friends about topics that people don't usually want to talk about, very painful topics, but also topics that are typically kept on the quiet, on the down low, having to do with substance use disorder, mental health issues, or challenges also. And so our hope is to just bring this out, put it on the table. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. We don't want this to be us talking at you, even though we kind of are, but we want it to be really conversational. Again, just hoping that we can bring these things to the forefront, and let's have conversations and normalize these things, because many people have challenges, and we don't want people to feel like they need to keep it quiet and suffer in silence. We don't want the loved ones of those who are suffering with these challenges and disorders to also feel like they have to keep it quiet, because there is support for those that have loved ones that are suffering. It's a very complex and very challenging, but also, everybody matters. No matter what you are going through, no matter what challenges you face, we all have value and we all have worth. So that's the point of this particular podcast. So with that, I'm going to move right along. And Rosie, today you're talking to us about the topic of stigma.
Right.
So I'm just going to let you kind of go with it and talk to us a little bit about what you have to share with us.
Okay, of course. So I am a peer recovery coach, right? And what that is I provide support to people who may be struggling with substance abuse or mental health issues. And peer support is someone who has lived experience, right? And when it comes to substance abuse and mental health, there's a lot of stigma that surrounds that. So in one of my groups, I had taught this curriculum that focused a lot about stigma. And I think it's a very important topic to cover because unfortunately, like I said, there's a lot of stigma that's involved, when it comes to using drugs, using alcohol, or suffering from a mental illness. And it's very unfortunate for those who are struggling.
Yeah. And to the truth, I kind of reviewed briefly your overview of the class that you taught, and the title of it, if I'm not mistaken, is the River of Choices.
Right.
And I really love it. Says that it's like coping with the stigma that may be associated with the past.
Yes.
And in that, it talks about dealing with some of our consequences from past decisions. And that could be just in life in general, right? We all have decisions that we wish we wouldn't have made or made them different, right? That's just life, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to stigma, and I'm going to read you just the brief. This is a really, really good definition that I want to share. It just says this. It says, where'd it go? See, it's a mark of disgrace or infamy, a stain or a reproach, as on one's reputation.
That's right.
And when we talk about that, when it comes to be that, it's a prejudgment.
Yeah.
It's a judgment about somebody, about what they do, and it makes them who they are.
Yeah.
So I know that in the work that we're doing in prevention, we talk about, or even in substance use treatment, it's about the person. So this is, Larry. It doesn't say Larry is a, the word that is, not, is a kind of a condemned word, but Larry is a drug addict. Larry is an alcoholic. Right? But really, we need to reframe those things and say Larry is an individual who is experiencing a substance use disorder, a alcohol use disorder.
Yes.
Then that way it removes that from being a character thing.
Yeah.
It's looked at as a moral failing or a character flaw, And that's when we think about what stigma is, that's exactly what that looks like.
Right. And I 100% agree, because when someone has cancer, you don't say so-and-so is cancer.
Exactly.
You don't say so-and-so is diabetes.
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
something like that. You don't refer to them as that.
Exactly.
This is someone who's experiencing this. So I think it's very important to bring awareness to these types of things. So I also had another a definition. I like how you read that one, but I had wrote one down, the definition from the dictionary. Stigma, a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. So yeah, that's what I had wrote down. But who creates stigma? What do we think? Society?
Off the top of my head, I think it is. I think we have societal norms.
Yeah.
That are like, I remember, what will they say? Well, who's they? So as like my mom would say, well, in Spanish, like, que va a decir la gente? I'm like, la gente, who's the gente? Like, who are the people that you're telling me that they were going to judge me? Well, who are they?
Right.
And who made that rule anyway? So I think it is the norms that get adopted without, I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think we just kind of adopt these things without really thinking about it or even challenging it.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it comes from a lot of people who haven't experienced that judge and prejudge people.
Yeah.
Where these stigmas come from.
I remember when I was younger, before I really even knew anything about mental health, we lived next door to this lady who, she was an older lady. She lived alone, but she would always scream and yell. And we knew she wasn't yelling at anybody because she lived alone. And I can admit, like, I stigmatized her. We called her, me and the neighborhood kids called her the crazy lady,
Yeah.
And now, older and being more aware, I realized I was stigmatizing her. And knowing now she does suffer from mental illness. So, yeah, I don't call her the crazy lady anymore.
Because when we know more, or say when we know better, we do better. Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. When we have knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
we can then do things, and things are different. But it's so interesting because I think that even as a kid,
Yeah.
and nobody probably around us knew to say to us as children, well, you know what, we don't go crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they're probably like, that's that crazy lady, and the whole family's talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody knew.
Right.
So everybody's on that,
Mm-hmm.
bandwagon, as they call it, because nobody knew better. But
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
I think it's important to bring awareness to, and just knowing why she was, screaming and yelling to herself all the time. Not because she was crazy, she was struggling, She probably wasn't taking her medication as directed or as needed. So yeah, I think bringing awareness is very important to kind of, how do you say, like,
Bring more understanding.
yeah, there you go, bring more understanding. So, yeah.
You made a really good comment, because who knows if she actually was ever diagnosed or if she was on medication prescribed.
Yeah.
So we know that in many communities of color, I'm not saying this across the board in general, but it is true that we don't have conversations, we don't have information,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have educated response to give because we just don't know.
Yeah.
I know just these TikToks like, I'm Mexican when, and then they were like, that was when I was watching.
Yeah.
It says that when I tell my mother, she tells me, oh, what are you supposed to get a job, or it's like those responses, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm this or I'm that, and it's not to put Mexican parents down, of course, but it's just to say, in a way, so they don't know what to say.
Right. Yeah.
Why should you be sad? You've got everything else, what I came, and the parents go on to these long, rants about why. Not rants, I can take that back. To these things about why you shouldn't feel what you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that invalidates what we feel. And then that leads to a whole other thing, like you don't want to share anymore. Mm-hmm. Why would I say this? Because it was dismissed.
Yeah.
And if you get dismissed enough times and you're not validated for what your experience is, eventually you stop sharing.
Yeah.
And you just keep it inside and deal with it in ways that oftentimes become unhealthy.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you shared that you taught this curriculum as a peer recovery coach.
I did.
So, can you tell me a little about what that experience was like for you? What what was the objective of the class? I guess I would say, and then two-part was how did folks receive it as you went through this?
Yeah, no, this was actually one of my first curriculums teaching by myself, because I was a co-facilitator. So I did get a lot of great feedback, and like I said, I work with people who are struggling with mental health and substance abuse, and I wasn't really surprised to hear some of the things that they struggle with, like self-harm, things like that. People are afraid to talk about it. People are afraid to talk about when, they've done things like self-harm themselves, things like that. Or they're afraid to, whenever they're applying for a job, they're afraid to disclose that information, that they have a mental health illness. Sharing those types of things with their employer because of the stigma that surrounds that.
So back to your subject, could you explain what you mean more by self-harm?
Like, maybe, like for example, I've talked to someone who used to just cut, burn marks, cut marks, not necessarily to end their life, but just to they got some kind of satisfaction from that. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say self-harm.
Okay, thanks.
Because there are other ways of self-harm, like harming yourself with using drugs or drinking alcohol. That's a form of self-harm as well. But in this specific case, when I was teaching the group, that was the person that I was speaking with. That was his experience. So.
Yeah, thanks. And I know that we could go into another topic and that with more discussion around what self-harm is, what that's related to, but that isn't the point of this particular session. We would want to bring on a mental health professional to be able to talk about these things with more clarity and maybe give a broader understanding. But I like the fact that, I think what we can say is that all of us, and prior to us getting the recordings, we talked about how every person, I think in life will be able to say to themselves, when we're under pressure or we're having a hard time and life gets challenging, we all find ways to make us feel better.
Right.
And we just want to feel better faster. Right? And sometimes you might try something, and we're kind of all looking. If we don't have, we teach a course that's called Coping Sensibly, and I always refer to it like a carpenter's tool belt, the best reference that I know to make. And that if we all have a tool belt in life, we need certain tools for certain things. A carpenter's going to build a house, he's got to have a hammer, he's got to have all these other tools. I don't know all the names for it, but I know this, that if I pull out a hammer and I really need a screwdriver to get the job, the hammer's not going to work. It may work and I'm able to slam that in there, but it's really not going to be very effective, right? So when we think about coping skills, we have to learn these things, and most of us aren't taught because our parents didn't know or we didn't know.
Right.
So we do, and we grab at the things that bring us the most relief the fastest. And then oftentimes those become unhealthier as time goes on, but more than that, they start to feel, they don't work anymore. And we've got to try something new and something different. And so when we're thinking about dealing with challenges around mental health issues and, substance use disorders, it's all, when we get to those places, and again, that's not the topic of this conversation, but we will talk more in the future about what that looks like. What is a disorder, and how do we know if someone has a disorder? So we can have that clinical conversation another time, but I think what's really good is that when we think about the ways that we've tried to handle things, and when they didn't work out, and then the consequences that we may or may not still be kind of, paying the price for that isn't really what I want to say, but we're going to be dealing with some of the consequences for earlier decisions, and we didn't know better to do better. And I think we all need to give ourselves some grace.
Yeah, I agree.
There was a statement in this when I was reading that said that in a perfect world, and just read it the way that it says it. It says, in a perfect world, there would be no stigma. In a perfect world, everyone would show compassion, empathy, love, and forgiveness. In a perfect world, people would let our past go and let us all move forward in a positive and encouraging way. Although these are all fine qualities and they do exist, the world is not perfect, And often, when dealing with mental illness and substance use issues, there may be some judgment, labeling, unfairness, and stigma to deal with, even when you are working to make a positive change in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we know that change doesn't happen overnight,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that change is. You
Right.
could, try to make changes in your, your lifestyle. Could be eating healthier, exercising more, getting more rest, whatever those things are for you. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
These are habits and things that we've kind of had in place for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are trying to make change, people won't always see that change right away, and we're still being judged on what people saw back there.
Yeah.
Or what we did then.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And
that's,
unfortunately, that does happen.
Yeah.
You know.
so when that happens, what is your what do you say to folks when they talk about how do we encourage people who are still experiencing that stigma when they are making changes and really
Mm-hmm.
trying to make some strides forward? What do you say to folks?
Well, my advice is just don't live in the past. Don't live in the past, and don't punish yourself for those past choices. Like you said, give yourself some grace, and just try to make those small changes that you've been working on every single day. Every single day, put in the effort to make those changes, and eventually, hopefully, people will begin to see and take note that changes are being made, and it's not only making those changes for other people, but making those changes for yourself. That's what matters. That's what's important, in my opinion.
That's really good. I think that's a key point. Is that some people will never see the progress.
Mm-hmm.
They will never give you kudos. They'll never say, "Great job." We see
Oh,
that
yeah.
they will still need to approach you, and their perspective of you may or may not ever change.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what that stigma is like facing, it may or may not be have to do with substance use or mental health. Whatever it is, how people see you and perceive you, sometimes they're just not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like you said, it's like we can't. For me, I just tell myself, you know what? Not everybody's gonna be my cheerleader.
Right.
They're not, and I have to be okay with that. I have to be my biggest cheerleader, even when nobody else is around.
Yeah.
I have to be. I need to be, because sometimes we're not going to get that from anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my thought about that.
Yeah, and one more thing I will say is that you can't let past choices define who you're going to be for the rest of your life.
It's really true.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to add on that too is, even though I have to tell myself that, but what's really important is support.
Oh yeah.
We can't do it alone. You've got to have the support of people who get you, who see you,
Mm-hmm.
who validate you, who will be there and cheer alongside you. And even if they're not around, you do have to do that for yourself.
Right.
But until we get there, we all need that. I don't care where we're at in life. I think we all still need a
Mm-hmm.
big, support squad. Otherwise, we couldn't do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's my thought about that.
I agree.
So, anything else? Did you have any questions, Mary, or thoughts you wanted to share?
No, not right now.
Stick around for part 2.
Okay, we'll stick around for part 2. Thank you, Rosie, for this is great. I'm glad that you did this. This is really, really awesome. I can't wait to hear more about it
Yeah.
and how you move forward with doing,
Mm-hmm.
keep us posted what you're up to. Thank you for being here and jumping on this I don't
Yeah.
know, jumped on this ship with us. I don't know what to call it, but anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you again for joining us again. Just this is a new adventure for us, but I think that it's just something that's really important, that we can just have some conversations and make it easy, because it really can be just that easy.
Yeah.
Just take out that stigma, let's take out that shame, let's take out all of those things that we think it is, and let's just talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I've learned that it's bigger in our mind,
Yeah.
and the moment you release it, it loses its power up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so big, it doesn't take up so much space. But if we just talk about it and we get it out there, it puts it into perspective a little bit more. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I hope that today has brought you some, information.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we will see you again for part 2. We'll continue this really good conversation. and move forward at our next time. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Hey everybody, welcome back. So we talked about doing a part 2. So we're going to go ahead and continue on from our earlier recording to just talk a little bit more about Voice Hope and what we do as a program. So I just want to say that we primarily are working around the area of substance use prevention programs. And in that, what we do is our biggest point is to educate community about what is substance use. What is a substance use disorder? What's an opioid use disorder? What is polysubstance use or misuse? And so that's kind of like the overarching goal, is to just increase people's awareness, increase the community's awareness to what these things are. There are words that kind of get thrown around a lot. I know now there's a lot of mental health diagnoses that get thrown around a lot. People use them in just everyday conversation. Oh, that person's narcissistic, or that person's bipolar. So, this is kind of what our goal is. Maybe the focus isn't necessarily mental health, although that often goes hand in hand. When someone doesn't have a treated mental health disorder, they will often turn to substances to, help them cope and to deal with certain things that they're going through. So just basically our purpose is to increase awareness and to educate community about what these terms mean, what they are, and maybe to also increase maybe where to get help and whether or not you should seek professional help and what that looks like for you or for your loved one. So I would say that basically the way that we do that is we attend community outreach events. So that could look like, as Matt more recently, we just it's called a tabling event, where you probably have seen before if you've gone anywhere to like maybe a health fair. You've got organizations there, they've got their tables, their tents, their brochures, information. That's kind of what we do. We will go to events where the community is invited, and we'll have brochures about our program. We'll like to engage with folks, tell them a little bit more about it if they ask questions. We just attended the Stockton Juneteenth event on last Saturday, and I'll ask Mary to let us a little more about that in just a moment. We also attended the one in Tracy last week, the Juneteenth Festival. We attended the Single Mile event here in Stockton. So we try, because being culturally responsive is a big part of this mission. All right, so the tabling events. So basically what we do is we go to tabling events. It's our way to really encourage or to engage with community members. We also, when we do that, we give out resources. And people who are there generally are looking for resources in the community. Generally, these are put on by large organizations sometimes, like the big cultural events like the Cinco de Mayo and the Juneteenth festivals. Those are usually really big cultural events, and that's really important to us too, because we want to make sure that we are always considering culture. We're always considering where people are coming from, where they're at, and want to make it relatable. It's really important, and I know for myself, as a woman of color, that when I go into a place or I see a brochure, I want to see someone who looks like me. I think to me it makes it more relatable. This is just who I am, and when I see anything that relates to me, and I'm feeling I'm all brown and proud, then that gets my attention. So that's really important that we do that for all the folks that we serve and try to make it where we are, acknowledging diversity. Stockton is a very, very diverse community, and we are glad about that, because we're able to just bring things together. I think it also bridges gaps and brings connection to be able to just say, we see you, we notice you, and we also want to hear from you. So when we're at these community engagement events, that's really important to us, that we show up. We are a startup, so maybe our table looks a little bit, like it's got some growing up to do, because we are, we've been in business. We have been incorporated since 2018, actually since 2004. First out with Voice of Hope being the name of the corporate name, and I've always been involved with the community. Back then when I first started, I did women's monthly events, monthly meetings, and we did that for 5 years consecutively prior to the pandemic, where we had a women's empowerment meeting, is what I would call it. We'd come together, we'd have them come out once a month, and they would, just to maybe celebrate it, take time off as a mom, as a wife, as a worker, whatever. We'd like to have a nice kind of breakfast, decorated very nice, just a mini break from our lives and responsibilities, because that list goes on and on, right?
Yeah,
it never ends. So, and in that would be a time to maybe connect with people that you've seen the month before, or bring your friend, and kind of have some engagement. So when women are together, it's just great to connect, right? I'm just saying, women, There's something about when we connect. It's a powerful thing. I might be biased, but that's my story. I'm gonna stick to it. But I also think that, and then there would be a woman, someone sharing an inspirational word, and so that I got so much good feedback off of that. And like I said, it was 5 years straight running. Every month we got to 2 women's conferences, which was really phenomenal. Everything that we do, I try to do without a fee. You know what? Because I never, ever, ever want money to be a barrier or the lack of for a woman not to participate. Because it just, people like, Pastor Alex, I'm also a pastor. They would say, you got to try. I said, no, I just don't ever want money to be a barrier. There was times when I didn't have any money. Didn't have money. I couldn't do the things that were the extra because I didn't have the money to do it, and I would be stopped by that. And I don't like what that does. There's a feeling inside if you've ever been without or you've been in lack. It's not a good feeling. You just feel like you wish you would do better. And it's a really ugly feeling to have. And I never, ever want anybody to feel that. When you come to any of the things that we do, we're never going to charge you a fee. That is what I try to do. Within my power is to not charge a fee. So being grateful we've been able to do that thus far and want to continue that. And so that was part of what we did with the women's. I would do women's classes. I did women's self-esteem courses, like 6 weeks, again for free, weekly. I created a curriculum called KITE. It's called, I spelled creating with the K, but it was called Creating Independence Through Empowerment, KITE. Haven't done it in a minute, I'm going to bring it back. But it really is about an empowerment thing, and I loved it, and I'll tell you where this came from. I was getting my undergraduate degree at Monterey Bay, and I was working with women in a recovery program, an outpatient recovery program. And so I had to come up with something, and I was really big on, change and empowerment. I think that the word empowerment doesn't mean I give people power, but I feel like if I can provide an atmosphere or provide a place where people can be and they begin to thrive and begin, just a place so they can grow and know who they are. That's really the premise of everything that I've ever tried to do. Just a place for people to grow and to thrive. You gotta allow those and provide those options and those atmospheres for people to be in those environments, right? And so we're there, and I created this thing, and it was about, just very briefly, I'll go through the kind of the section of the workshops. One is like just a list of like the skills that you have. Be anything, can you, cook or whatever it is, right? And so I had all different categories, and one of them was, so before I go to the story, I'll tell this. So it was skill list, which skills are. Then it was about coming together. It was about community. There was small group and breakout sessions. There was people, sometimes you either love them or you hate them, one or two. And there was opportunity to really people working together and laying their skills on the table together and see what they could form out of it. But the story that I made from that will forever be with me is that as the women were checking off their list, right? One of them had there was like a section under construction or something like that, or carpentry, and this lady was like, yeah. I know how to do sheetrock. Yeah, for sure. I mean, my old man, we're at the hotel. We got into a fight. He punched a wall. But she said, I know how to patch that up. So she was so excited about that. And for me, as I heard that, I'm like, yes. It took a not good situation, right? Very traumatic event, whether they realized it or not at the time. But it was a spin where you can take something out of something so horrible and pick something good that empowered you, that gave you something to take with you. So that forever will be this is the right thing. This is a good program. It's a good curriculum I put together because it brought that out in people. And that was cool. So that was what the classes I would do, and then give me that back. It's been a minute. I miss doing my groups and classes because that's something that really floats my boat, as they say. The other part, classes that I did I would talk about self-esteem. Did a lot of recovery classes and groups for men that were in a residential program for recovery. One of the classes we had offered previously was Celebrate Recovery, which is a specific curriculum. It's kind of like an AA program, but it's based on spiritual steps. It kind of combines the two. The tagline, I love it. It says that it is recovering from life's hurts, habits, and hang-ups. That's everybody. We all got things that we're working through, right? And recovering from something.
Yeah.
Just from life. And so one story I'm going to share about that too, which just is that we did this back in 2007 or 2008, I think. It's a 1-year course. And there was a woman that came, and when she came, she was actively using. She was a heroin addict. She was also a prostitute. and she seen the flyer, started coming to the class. She completed the 1 year. I think there was only 2 people who completed the whole year. She was one of them. And since that time, this woman went on to get, I believe she has her bachelor's degree, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a master's, but for sure she has her bachelor's degree. And she now works in the community. She's a minister working in her church, but also a very community, an advocate in the community. So that to me is like, I've always said, if we can reach just one, then all of this is worth everything.
Yeah.
And that's like the story. I'll ask her to come on and share her story with us. So that's kind of what we do, some of the things, and then the Coping Sensibly course, that is around, put on by Michelle McDaniel, who's an LCSW. She created this program, this curriculum, and it's talking about mindfulness. It's kind of like, you got to take one classes, did you? No? Okay. So it's like mindfulness. It's like, let's just get ways to deal with life in a healthy way. I love Michelle's, her example that, if we keep doing something over and over and over again and it stops working, eventually we're going to need to find new ways to deal. And most of us, like I mentioned earlier, we find ways to deal with stuff, but it's not always healthy. We find what works, and it works until it doesn't. But then oftentimes we don't know what else to do. So what I love about this, and one example I'll give really quick, is she was saying that we can get overwhelmed with a situation in life, but you have to just sometimes lean into that. There's some things we cannot control. We can't change circumstances we might find ourselves in. It has nothing to do with us, right? We just have to lean into it. I remember thinking, lean into it. What does that mean? I want to take care of it. So if we lean into it and realize, I can't change that, but what can I do about how I am responding in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And once I was like, man, it kind of like took some pressure off of me not having to change it or fix it, but just it is what it is, and me being okay with that. Yeah. I know that's all right. I don't have to, just these are things personally that we go with, and for myself. The other classes we have a parenting course, and so I know that people say parenting, people are like, get all offended, like don't tell me to parent my kids, but I'm telling you, from experience, this facilitator's name is Jimmy Sasaki. I met him 30 years ago. I needed help parenting my kids. I was a single mom, and I saw directions, and I saw things happening all around me, and I just felt like I didn't know, like, sometimes I felt like I would be grasping at things, and I just couldn't catch it, right? So I found him. There weren't a lot of resources because I was making phone calls, knocking on doors, and everywhere was like a dead end. I stumbled onto him, somebody finally referred me to him. It's called the Protective Parenting Institute. Now, what I want to say is that this premise says this, that as a parent, you are your child's first teacher, and your home is the first classroom. Mm-hmm. So when you think about that just by itself, we don't think of our home as a classroom. I don't know, you're a parent. Do you think of your home as a classroom?
I didn't until I took that course.
Yeah, so you did take that. So
yeah.
Tell me a little about what your experience was with that.
It gave me a lot of useful insight, like a lot of things that we don't consider or we don't think about as a parent. Sometimes we're just stuck in survival mode and we're just trying to do our best we can. Mm-hmm. But like we have to slow down and consider all these different factors, like risk factors, everything else that we have to deal with as parents. So it helped me a lot.
Was there one tool that you took and have applied?
Well, the biggest thing that stuck out to me was when he made us reflect on our favorite teacher and our least favorite teacher. Those are two people a lot of people will never forget in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be like my worst teacher. Mm-hmm. So, I don't want that for my kids either, right? So then I think about the qualities of my favorite teacher, and I need to instill that within me to be that for my kids too.
That's really good. It's very powerful, right? Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, you need to sign up for these classes. They are, again, no charge. When I met Jimmy Sasaki, and back then Stockton Unified paid for this, what's called the Parent Mentor Project. They took 2 bus loads, the charter buses. Mm-hmm. They took us, a group of parents, up to Grand Labacan, which is in near the Nevada border. But anyway, it was a retreat. Mm-hmm. And you got to get away. They even gave us like a small stipend for help with babysitting. and we were away. Sometimes you got to get away to learn some stuff, right? Because home calls you,
All the
work calls you,
distractions.
right? You
Yeah.
get distracted. So I'm trying to work that out to get some friends. We just retreat. I'm telling you, it was life changing. So we're over there, and he did this 2.5-day workshop. It transformed me personally. There was some real healing that happened for me personally, but it changed my entire perspective on my parenting approach.
Yeah.
And what he did say about the favorite teacher or the people, he also mentioned about the teachers if they had like a teacher's pet.
Yeah.
Right. He talked about that. Everybody knows that, right? They have one. Those teachers, they have failed.
Yep.
If every child doesn't feel like they are your pet or your favorite, then you have failed. And then he lined that up to being a parent.
Yeah.
If every child doesn't feel like they are your favorite, then as a parent, you really haven't done your job.
Yeah.
And we all know that, as adults, we all have memories of like, oh, that was, and people say it jokingly, but if we listen enough, and they say it a lot, I won't pay attention, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I was this, and I was the black sheep, and they were the favorite, or the this, that, or the other. There was some truth in that.
Yeah.
When you and your adult siblings get to talking, it'll come out, right?
Yeah. So with my kids, I, at the time, only had 3. And they're kind of close in age. And I pulled each of them aside. And I was like, don't tell your sibling, but you're my favorite. So I told all 3 of them the same thing. And for a good 2 years, they were good about it. And then they started to tease each other like, oh, I know mom's secret. And then one of them busted me out. So now they all know the secret.
Then they really are all your favorites, right?
Yeah, I don't really have a favorite, guys. Sorry.
That's really good. So these are these parenting. We've been trying to get in the community, and the thing for us, I think that I would say the challenge is really getting this out to people so that they know that we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we started this work like that. I've been in the community for many, many years, doing other things like the classes I mentioned, the women's classes. We also did backpack drives, did a lot of different things. But in this prevention work and offering these types of things, we finally we got some funding and we were able to do some phenomenal work. But we're still new on that end. We've just started really hitting the ground running since really boots on the ground since November.
Yeah.
So we, it's a lot of, we had to build a team, which now when I started, I'll say this season of Voice of Hope, I would say I started with, there was 3 of us. We wrote the grants, and we, got the funding, wrote 2 grants, got funded at the same time, a month apart, for 2 grants, and there was just 3 of us. We started to hire everybody. We had to, writing the grant and putting things up what you want to do is one part, but the implementation is where the challenge is because you need the right people in the right places to really move the vision forward.
Yeah.
And that it's challenging. It's challenging. I will say this, that when I started, that folks that applied and were referred to me by friend of a friend or whatever, people didn't have a lot of experience in this field. And for me, that was okay because all I needed to know is that people had a heart for this community and to help people. But they had skills, the same skills, and skills that they could simply be transferred to this work once they had the knowledge about what prevention is. And I think that for me, so that may have taken a little bit longer, but I feel like now we have grown to a team of 14. To a team of 14, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I've had people come to me and said to me after experiencing the classroom and say, hey, do you have room for me on your team? I won't mention names, but this one on here, we met married at Narcan training.
Yeah.
And I had somebody else ask me the same thing who came as an intern. And so just the fact that people came, they're still here, moving this forward, we're doing a lot of work with a little bit of time. When you have grants, there are time frames and time limits in place. And so you're trying to really squeeze this all in a short time, so it gets very hectic, very chaotic at times. But I think at the end of the day, and I don't know, I guess I have to ask everybody else, how they're feeling about this, especially as we're winding down for our first end of our first one of our first grants. But I think we're doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're doing all right. Then we have to report numbers per quarter, and we have definitely grown as far as the number of trainings we provide, the number of people that we're reaching. We are about to double from our last quarter. And I think last quarter we reached over 800 people in our quarter. Which, not so bad when we didn't even have 14 people yet.
Yeah. I mean,
You
just
know.
at our last tabling event, we spoke to 128 people.
Yeah. So, we're getting out there. People are starting to know us.
Yeah.
And it's not about, to know us means that you know what we have and that you can take advantage of that and come again for no fee. People can come, and that's our biggest thing, is just letting people know, we're had to develop a social media presence. The vision for this podcast was written last year when I submitted that grant application, and it took us some time to really get things in place to even start doing these. So even though I may think of it as being kind of late, we're really not. We're really right on time.
Yeah.
We have people in the right places. A shout out to our videographer, Chris, who's done an amazing job. And I think that, this is just the beginning of what we'll be able to do. Our website, it's up and running. It's voiceofhopecalifornia.org. I would just say that, as I mentioned, we're building. We're building. So everything isn't polished in the way that we'd like it to be. It's not the end product, but we are constantly moving forward and building. And I think, actually, Mary made a really good statement to me last time, is we did our last podcast, and after I saw our sign was crooked, I'm like, oh, I can't believe our sign is crooked. I don't even know good content, but I was really stuck on the crooked sign, to be honest. And then Mary said to me something so great. She's like, well, no, that's okay, because it'll just show improvement. I'm like, oh, yeah, huh? So that was really good that she said that, because I think we could look back like, hey,
Look where we started.
Look where we
Look
started,
where we
right?
are now. Yeah.
and so I needed that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever said thank you, but thank you. I needed that because, I've got the vision in my head of what that finished product looks like, but when you're building it, it doesn't look the same.
Well,
it's a process.
Look at that paper you drew.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming to life.
Yeah. So I shared with Mary, I'll be up to, or maybe on another podcast, or maybe we'll share a photo of it. It was something that I got this vision back in like 2004 or 5. Long time. I started with a group of women in my home. We actually started with the Bible study and just kind of talking and meeting. And that just progressed on something different. And I had this picture in my head of what that got the name Voice of Hope. And I kind of drew it like, I'll share the picture. We can maybe post it. It's like I just drew it in pencil. It's like like rainbow's sign of hope. We know that. And under it were like just boxes. And every box had all the programs that I seen in my mind that I wanted to do. Women's empowerment, prevention education, parenting. There was a reentry and recovery programs. There was probably about 10 categories, 8, I don't know how many now. But I shared that with Mary the other day, and I shared it with the other team members before, because this is like real. This is like a 20-year dream. That is coming to fruition. And so I'm so grateful. I'm getting emotional. Because this means it's my life's work. Went to school. I got my master's degree in social work. Had no plans, another story for another day. I just started school because I found I can get financial aid. And that was, I'll leave that there for right now. But I didn't have any lofty education. Well, I was going to go preschool teacher, okay. Get that done in, about 24 units, I think it was at the time. And I'll just go. But once I got to Delta College, and the path just changed. And the people I was around, that environment I was talking about earlier, I was placed in an environment that caused me the opportunity to grow. And people around me saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and they were able to draw that out, and again, providing that place for me to do that. And that's what my hope is. That's from where I come from. Whether it's the people that are on the team, whether it's community members, if you can just see what somebody else sees in you and get the opportunity to draw that out by providing opportunities and encouragement and support, then that person can just bloom into something they didn't really have. It really is about purpose, about people really finding their purpose. Because I think if you've got purpose, which is always linked to what you're passionate about, then your life has a different meaning in it. It takes on a sense of, purpose. I already said that, but it brings satisfaction and contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't always equate to dollars. Because doing this work, even when I got paid, I didn't get paid. So there was seasons that I left a job after my master's degree. I was a therapist for Kaiser, and I walked away from that job because this vision was bigger to me than a paycheck. Now, is that always the best decision? It ain't for everybody either. But for me at the time, I did what I thought was right. I don't regret it. Times weren't easy. That whole not having money thing, that was part of that. But I don't regret it because it drove me. I couldn't let it go, even though I'm like, why can't I just be a person that can just go get an 8 to 5 job and call it a day? Why? But I couldn't. I wasn't wired that way. I did it while I needed to, But then there was something in me, I couldn't. There was something bigger in me on the inside that I couldn't. I have a really dear friend named Gary, and I took a job. I left Kaiser, and I was writing the plans and getting stuff done. And then someone says, "Hey, I just saw a job for a social work job at a foster kitchen. Did you apply?" I said, "Well, no, I just have that job, right?" But I wouldn't apply anymore. I got distracted. I wouldn't apply, and I got the job. And I'm in that job, and I talked to my friend. I had just met him too. He's a great guy, been a great friend and support of this work that I do. And I said, "I'm not supposed to be here, Gary. I'm not supposed to be here. I left my job. Why did I take a job? I'm not supposed to be here." Like my second week on the job. Yeah, I'm not really supposed to be here, but I did. I stayed and I did the work, and but I got distracted because sometimes you have things to do and you need money to do that. But all that just to say that this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm supposed to do, and when I've come to that place in peace, that whatever and it's working out now. Now I'm not broke anymore, so it's a good thing. But I do this because it's inside of me and it's passion. I'm hoping that people will find that as well, whatever that looks like on their journey. To find that place, that purpose for them, that will bring them some contentment and fulfillment. Because life is short. We say that all the time, but it really is. It really, really is. And if people can not just get by and survive, I believe that we're made for more. Life is challenging. We all got struggles and hard times come, and so do good times. But whatever we can do to bring hope and a message like it's going to be okay and you can get through this, if we can just be that voice of hope to say it doesn't have to be that way. There are other alternatives, and maybe you don't know that answer right now, but if we can provide you with anything at all, if it's information, some support, a smile, a handshake, I don't know, whatever that looks like for anybody, if we can be a voice of hope to you, that is really our mission, to just say, it's not over. It's not always going to be like this. Change can happen. It does happen. Even though it may not look like it at the time, but to trust that tomorrow is a different day and tomorrow could very well possibly be so much better. Because if we have hope, then we have strength. So that's what we do around here. We have lots of classes, lots of groups, and again, that's the whole reason. Everything we do is about providing the information, increasing the awareness, so we can just make better decisions and feel like we are equipped for life. And when things get thrown our way, we can deal with it in a healthier way. To help us bounce back. And then we can take what we know and pass it on to our children. If you've got children, or your grandchildren, or your friends, or your family, that we can just take the message of hope, take the message of finding purpose to those that we know and we love. And if each one reaches one, we're making some significant impact. Absolutely. One at a time. So that's really what we do. That's the goal. That's the overall, purpose of Voice of Hope and Passion and Purpose Ministries. I will say that our program is called Act Now. One of them is called Act Now for Actively Coming Together. And that to me represents community. If we can join voices, if we can join, for those that want, not everybody is meant to be a community advocate or to get involved, but there are those that want to. And if we can, for those that want to, maybe they don't really know where to start, or maybe there's a handful of folks up there, if we can bring all those handful of people, or one or two, and we come together, then we become a larger group with a greater voice to really bring about change for people personally and also collectively and in our community as a whole. So that is the hope. That is why we do what we do. And I don't know. Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't share about what we do? Or
I think we should touch on what classes and activities we have coming up.
Okay. All right, cool. So we have the Protected Parent Institute that's coming up. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have 2 sessions. We have morning and evening. So Tuesdays, and we'll put this on our website. Tuesdays from 10 to 11:30 a.m. And we have evenings from 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the next 2 weeks through June. And then upcoming classes again to be scheduled for July. We also have classes around Narcan training, which is to train folks to recognize the signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose. If you know about fentanyl, if you've heard about it, or if you haven't but you want to know more, we can train people to recognize that sign of a symptom of an overdose and give them a medication and show them how to use it to literally save a life. And I would say this: if you're thinking, oh, you don't use drugs or you don't use opioids or know anybody that does, I would just ask you this and think about it. You know what? Think about what it would be like to be able to save a life, literally. You could be in a grocery store. You could be at your workplace. You could be your child could have a friend over. There's so many scenarios that this is so prevalent. This is happening everywhere to everybody. It's across racial lines. It's across ethnicities. It's across socioeconomic lines. It's everywhere. It is, and people are dying every day. And so I would just say that if you just want to learn more about that, you can contact us. Our phone number is 209-451-4398. You can text also to 209-670-3598. We have 2 office locations where our classes are at. We have 1351 West Oak Street, suite number 6 in Stockton. And also we have our second location, which is 5637 North Pershing, suite B7 and B5. So I would just say give us a call. You can find out where our classes are being held, the time and the date. And then we have another class coming up. It's going to be talking about stimulants and what are they, how do they affect your body, and that's going to be via Zoom with a date. We're going to be scheduling that. We'll put that in our information as well.
We have painting coming up.
Men's Mental Health Awareness Paint Night is for men, and it's happening this Friday, June the 21st, at our Oak Street office from 5:30 to 7:30. Space is limited. It's only 15 people. I say men, come on out. We'll have some refreshments for you. And just have an opportunity to have paint. We did a women's wellness paint night on June the 7th. And I was able to say that Mary was there. So can you tell us something about that?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I was actually surprised at how fun that was. We had 15 people. It was a full house. And it was just exciting to see everybody just, having like that fellowship and
Having a good time.
I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have another one for women. It's going to be on Saturday, June the 29th.
Yes.
At our Oak Street office from 10:30 to 12:30, I believe.
Yes.
You can check the times. But again, it's a time for just to do something. Somebody gets so caught up. And we've got to take time for recreation.
Yeah.
A time out to be around other people, that community. And no matter what you're going through, no matter how busy you are, take the time. Take the time. And we'll be having more paint nights in the future. One shout out to Tamara Kimbrough, who is our artist. She's doing a phenomenal job. And we're excited to move forward with these projects as well. And then we have on Thursday, June 27th, a community forum.
Yeah.
Going to be held at Bambus Community Center from 5:30 to 7:30. We really hope people to come out. Again, we'll have these conversations around what's happening in our community with the fentanyl overdoses, with the programs that we offer. Just a way, again, to just increase awareness and to get those conversations on the table so that we can move this forward and get as many people, informed, basically, and have a dialogue, again, have some conversation around these topics. So that's what we're here to do, and we're hoping that you'll come out, spread the word, and we'll have a full house on the 27th. When you come out and you take part, we also will have raffles for gift cards for your participation. And, so.
At that forum, we also do want to hear your feedback.
Yeah.
We want to know where you think, like, we can, do better.
Exactly. It's a conversation. We want to know, like, if these are the classes we have, the groups that we're thinking, but we really need to hear from you because we can't tell you what you need. What we have in offering is based on other feedback. But you know what? Things are ever changing, and we need to ebb and flow. And we just need to hear, how can we best serve you, your family, and your community?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want to know, because we want to be relevant. We want to be here and continue the work that we're doing. And the only way we can do that is if we are meeting the needs of the community. So thank you for saying that, because that was great. So yeah, that's what we do. So we hope that we'll see some events. Again, please call us for more information. We can give you the details about all that. Again, at 209-451-4398. Again, if I may have forgot to introduce myself, but I'm Alexandria Contreras. I'm the founder and the director of Passion Purpose Ministries, also known as Voice of Hope. And this is
Mary Lorraine, the administrative assistant.
So thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you next time. And remember, stay out of the shadows.